West Philadelphia, born and raised.
On the playground, Big Dipper spent most of his days.
Chilling out, maxing, relaxing, all cool and all, shooting some b-ball outside of the school when a couple of guys who were up to no good
Started making trouble in the neighborhood.
He got in one little fight and his mom got scared and said, "You're going to KU with those damn pecker woods." Well, damn. All right. We're getting into it.
We're getting into it.
This episode's about Wilt the Stilt Chamberlain.
Which, the Stilt he never liked. He never liked that nickname.
No, he didn't.
He never liked Goliath. He was very self-conscious about his 7'1" height.
Yes.
And the name he always preferred, and he even called his mansion Ursa Major when he was out in Bel Air. Mm-hmm. Went from West Philadelphia to Bel Air, the Big Dipper, Wilt Chamberlain.
He actually got the name Dip because he was so tall. When he was like 13, he had to dip him down for... when he was walking through a door, he had to dip in. Yeah,
they said he was 6'3" by the time he got out of elementary school, which is... gargantuan.
Well, his mom said that he was 6'3", 13, and he still sucked his thumb. So it was like he was like a man-child.
Yeah. I mean, just absolutely insane.
If you could think of seeing a taller than everybody else man essentially sucking his thumb, just like hanging out, that's what you would see Wilt Chamberlain at 13.
It's like Roger and American Dad. I'm the baby.
Exactly.
But no, Wilt Chamberlain, born August 21st, 1936 in West Philadelphia.
Born and raised,
yeah. Take that, Will Smith.
And dominated high school basketball.
How could he not? He's like 6'10" already.
Well, that's the thing. He was, I think people say this, he was the first big man that was really athletic, really able to move.
Yeah, like you had guys in the NBA previously, like George Mikan and stuff, who were just kind of like big trees.
Yeah, they would call them goons.
Yeah, goons.
They just wouldn't move. They wouldn't do these things that, I mean, Wilt changed the game.
Yeah, he did. They changed the rules for him.
Yes.
Yeah.
The foul shot rule I thought was the most interesting because they were like, he could dunk from there because technically you could jump from the foul line back then and dunk, technically. So they said that a player has to release the ball from the foul line.
Free throw line. How cool would it be, though, if Dr. J got to do free throws from the foul line and just take off from half court and just be like, 1.
Yeah, 1. I'm doing that again now. Yeah, it's great. All right, so he dominated in high school, and then he got accepted to Kansas University.
Yeah, funny story about his recruiting. He wanted to get away from Philadelphia. I mean, he was very tight with his family, but he kind of felt the need to get out of there. And people were even saying he could go to the NBA then. Granted, there were rules that prevented it. But
well, hold on. Let me bring this up because I thought this was extremely interesting. He actually got signed out of high school. There was a rule.
Yeah, by the Philadelphia Warriors team.
That you could sign a guy out of high school, but then they had to go and play 4 years of whatever.
Yeah, it's
so we'll
like
get
a
into
futures
that.
contract.
Yeah, it's a futures contract. They're
That's
not
how Larry Bird ended up on the Celtics.
Yes.
They kind of had that where he had to wait a year. He was already with the Celtics, but he was playing at Indiana State.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's an interesting rule.
But yeah, like I was saying, he wanted to get out of Philadelphia, but he didn't want to go like that far. So like UCLA and the West Coast schools were kind of out. Didn't want to go to the South, obviously, because this is the mid-'50s and
segregation,
Jim Crow segregation, all that stuff. So.
And well, that was the thing, is every single college wanted him.
Yeah, he had like 120 scholarship offers.
Yes.
And he ends up at the University of Kansas under legendary coach Fogg Allen for the first year. And at that time, though, freshmen were not allowed to play.
Which is crazy.
Oh, yeah, that's all you see now is freshmen.
I know.
But yeah, and he's just dominating on the scout team, and the coaches are salivating over the fact that he's going to be this tremendous force for Kansas.
This next year, the first year that he actually gets to play, they make it to what will become the NCAA championship.
Yeah, they're playing in the NCAA championship. It's actually one of the best NCAA championships ever played. They're
triple overtime.
North Carolina.
Yep.
And Wilt has an amazing game. I mean, he's dominating, but everyone thought they couldn't lose. Kansas's then coach at the time had said, we could put Wilt with 2 cheerleaders and 2 of his frat bros, and we'd win a national championship. And likely they would have a chance. Unfortunately, they were upset by North Carolina.
Well, the power forward for Kansas was a great shooter. This is what I heard. And he had one of his worst shooting night. Like, I think he went like 2 for 12.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where Wilt's getting the boards and kicking it out, or getting double team and kicking it out, and he's just missing. And that's really, if you go through, because I watched some of the highlights, he really misses some like straight up game winning shots.
Yeah. And it was kind of, he's always said that was the loss that hurt him the most. And it was kind of the beginning of the narrative of Wilt Chamberlain, statistical anomaly, domination guy, can't lead a team.
He's out for himself.
He's out and in it for himself, which is completely untrue.
Yeah.
It's just the label he's stuck with. I almost relate it to Peyton Manning when he was at Tennessee. Like Peyton Manning, dominant player, dominant in the NFL, but a lot of times when the chips are on the table, it just never happened for him.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at Manning the year after he left Tennessee. They won the national championship.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. So they lose this national championship game, and then the next year, teams start triple teaming him.
Yeah.
And it's such a thing where he debates quitting basketball.
He does, yeah. He's sick of it. And what he ends up doing by the end of that year, where they don't end up winning again.
Well, they don't even get into the tournament.
Yeah. They're playing in the old Big 8, and like even though they had 5 losses, I think the tournament was only like 32 teams at most then.
Yeah.
They don't get in, and he says, I'm not coming back for my senior year, but I still have another year left before I can play in the NBA. So what does Wilt do?
He goes to, God, it's hard to classify this team. He goes to the Harlem Globetrotters. Exactly. Which one of my favorite jokes is going to a Globetrotter game and rooting for the Generals.
Oh, dude.
And just being like, do you not see this, ref?
Do you remember that Simpsons episode where Krusty has the gambling addiction?
Yes.
And he's in debt. He's like, you bet on the Washington Generals. I thought the Generals were due.
It's such a great joke that there's like many a shows that, because it's such a great one.
Yeah, it's like the whole premise is like they're hapless, and the Globetrotters are like, he's spinning the ball on his finger. Just take it. Just take it.
It's great. But so he becomes a Harlem Globetrotter, and he plays basketball for fun. So I feel like in this era where he's getting triple teamed, it stopped being fun.
Yeah, it's fun for him, and it rekindles his love, and it's like, okay, basketball's good again, but like it's only 1 year, because it's like I'm a competitor.
Yes.
I want to play in games with rules, and despite this being an awesome spectacle, this isn't like sustainable for what I want to accomplish.
They also offered him twice what any other basketball player was playing. So they offered him $60,000 for the year, and I think the top player was making like 30.
Yeah, and $30,000 a year. It was Bob Cousy for the Celtics. Yeah,
because he came in the next year and he made what Bob Cousy was making, and people were like, "Whoa!" And then they saw that it was worth it.
Yeah. Definitely. No, so he's with the Warriors, the Philadelphia Warriors, following season.
Yeah.
And he's the first player to ever win NBA Rookie of the Year, but also the MVP.
Yes.
And completely goes out and starts dominating people.
Dominating so much that people are saying that nobody could guard him.
He was unguardable. I mean, they had to widen the paint, the lanes.
They reformed the game.
Yeah, they started enforcing offensive and defensive goaltending because
he would
of Wilt.
just rip the ball out of the air.
Yeah,
it was great.
Absolutely dominant player for that era. Just crazy.
But then he meets up, and I feel like this is the first big NBA rivals, because I feel like then he meets up with the Celtics.
Yeah. Before that, though,
okay,
by 62, because it's that important, Wilt Chamberlain is the only player in NBA history to score 100 points in a game.
Oh, yeah. We'll talk about the hundo.
Yeah, we can get into the hundo.
Yeah.
March 2nd, 1962, because the NBA was kind of like most professional sports leagues at the very beginning. The Philadelphia team, the Warriors at the time, they were like a regional team.
Yes.
He didn't do this at the Spectrum where Dr. J and Chocolate Thunder Dawkins were doing everything. He scored 100 points in a Hershey, Pennsylvania gym.
Yeah.
And against the Knicks. And how do you get 100 points?
They were saying that because obviously they don't have it's not set up like it is now with all the stats up on the board.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know. People were like, man, he's scoring a lot of points. And then the announcer announces it and everybody's eyes go huge. They're like, and Wilt Chamberlain, 82 points today. And everyone's like, whoa. And then that's when they kicked it in. They're like, this could happen.
Yeah, and they were feeding him the ball. I think he had 36 field goals plus the free throws that he made. And mind you, this is before the 3-point line was a thing.
Yes. Before the ABA came in. So, I mean.
I just wanted to bring that up to show you that type of dominance. And there's that iconic picture of him with the paper that has
100
on it.
Yeah.
I mean, oh.
And it's one of those things where the Knicks were trying to stall the game. So this was
before the shot clock.
Before the shot clock. So this was something that basketball, he essentially brought in the shot clock because teams would try and stall as hard as they could. They would do 40 or 50 passes in a possession because they knew the smaller the score, the more chance they had to win. Because with Wilt, I mean, he could put in 100 points.
Yeah, you just keep feeding him the ball. And
nobody could guard him.
Yeah, exactly. He so like you said before, Philadelphia was a really good team when they had Wilt. The big issue is there's a team called the Boston Celtics, and they have a center named Bill Russell, who, despite being a Hall of Famer and not as good as Wilt, really got in his head and was really the only guy who could get in his way.
Well, something that I thought was really interesting, because they were actually friends. They would meet up before games and have dinner and shit like that. But something I thought was interesting was they said that Russell was just a master of psychology. Yep. So he would let Wilt score for about 2.5 quarters and then shut him down. And his entire team would be cold because they would have 4 shots between them.
Yeah, they wouldn't have had to touch the ball.
Yes.
And Boston can go up and down with Kuzi and Havlicek and all those guys and Bill Russell. And they, of that era, the Celtics were the dominant team.
Yes.
And they had the one guy that could throw a wrench in any Wilt Chamberlain-led team. And,
Bill Russell's still one of the greatest defensive players ever, I think, because of that.
Oh, yeah. And you would have to be to stop Wilt.
You have to.
You have to be physical with him. You have to try and match him. You got to get in his head because you're not going to physically outdo him.
Yeah, he was the physical specimen of the time. Nobody was 7'1". Nobody was 275. It's one of these things where he was just, like they were saying, it was just he would block out the sun.
He could, yeah. I mean, nobody had seen that before.
Yes.
Nobody had seen that before.
And he was athletic. I think that's the thing that makes him the best big man of his era.
Yeah. So from 60 to 65, he's in Philadelphia. Then he's in San Francisco after they moved to San Francisco, now Golden State Warriors, running into that Celtics train. And then by 65, he wanted to stay, by 65, he's traded to the 76ers.
But he wanted to stay on the West Coast.
Yeah,
that's what he wanted. But yeah, they traded him back to Philly for the 76ers. And luckily, though, because
he finally breaks through.
Yeah.
Finally breaks through in the 66-67 season, and they finally stick it to Boston, make it to the finals against the San Francisco Warriors.
Yep.
And they win. He wins his first championship. And you would think that would put to rest all the nonsense.
Naysayer, yeah.
But it doesn't.
I thought it was interesting when they beat Boston, they were celebrating like it was the championship.
Yeah.
They brought champagne out, and a couple of guys had to be like, hey, we still got another series.
And it was Wilt who said that to them. Yeah.
Because that's what it meant beating Boston. They were such the powerhouse of that time.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
But, so he's with the 76ers after that, still running into Boston, still hitting that Bill Russell wall. And he wanted to stay there. He wanted to stay again with Philadelphia's new team, the 76ers. However, he runs into kind of a tiff with ownership because part of him wanting to stay was they were going to give him a stake in the 76ers franchise.
This was interesting because I heard the ownership deny this, and he said that they assured him.
Yeah. And when they didn't give him that stake in ownership, he's like, trade me.
Yes.
Get me out of here.
Because he was expecting the Magic Johnson deal, even though Magic Johnson deal hadn't come around, where they would give him like 5% of the team because he was such a mainstay.
And credit to Wilt, even after his basketball career, he was a very good businessman. He was very good at keeping up with his finances and finding business deals and, having a very large estate because
Constant
of his
income.
financial savvy.
Yeah.
Yes. So he's traded to the now Los Angeles Lakers in 1968. And that's kind of what everyone sees him as a Laker.
As a Laker. Well, his first year, let's get into the coach.
Yeah.
Butch Van Bredekoff was the coach, and Butch hated him.
Yeah.
He said the first practice, he was absolutely amazed. He was moving. He was doing everything that you want. Second practice, he couldn't get him to move from his spot. And he was just like, screw this guy.
That's the thing when you have coaches like that who won't play to somebody with that gifted, talented, skill set is, I'm the coach. I should be able to do what I want, even at the expense of the team and shitting on the guy. And those two really butted heads over that.
Well, we see in the finals, it really was at the expense of the team.
And it was because they're playing the Celtics again.
6 minutes left. Wilt twists his knee and comes out.
And the coach punished him for it.
Yes.
He wouldn't even let him back in.
I was going to say, it was like 2 minutes later, he says, hey, I'm ready to come back in. And the coach says, no, we're doing better without you.
And they end up losing.
Yeah.
And Bill Russell had some very negative comments about Wilt.
Well, Bill Russell's comments I felt like were unjustified because of the coach not letting him back in. Mm-hmm. But what he said was that he just didn't have the heart, pretty much. He said he was a faker, which I didn't necessarily agree with what happened, but he just didn't have the toughness, is what Bill essentially was referencing to.
And even though he won a title, it kept adding to that unfortunate narrative, which is completely untrue.
Yes.
And it hurt him in a way because Wilt, psychologically, from what I researched, wasn't like Russell, like an win-at-all-costs guy. And this is an era of the NBA, especially if you're a big man, where you got to have that dog mentality to kick the crap out of the guy that you're facing. And Russell had that more than anybody of that era.
Well, Wilt was the gentle giant.
He was. He really was.
And people say that nobody got fouled harder than Wilt in the, you think of NBA in that era, they were absolutely hacking guys.
And that was the thing, though, is like he would lay off of guys because he didn't want to hurt them when he totally could have.
Absolutely. He was so much bigger than every other player. Like even Bill Russell, he was still bigger than him, even though Russell really knew how to move his body and all that shit. But he was just so much bigger than everybody else on the court.
Yeah, and it was really unfortunate because the Lakers of that era really hadn't broken through. And it was mainly because of the Boston Celtics.
Yeah.
But finally, by 1972, and then losing the year before, I believe, to the Knicks in that famous Willis Reed game, because Wilt didn't want to go out and hurt Willis Reed.
I know.
And that really was a psychological edge for the Knicks, who ended up winning the title.
It was interesting. They say Willis Reed's 4 points was more important than Wilt's 27.
Yeah.
And I was just like, that is such a great moment in sports where you could see Wilt just didn't want to, because what Bill Russell said at that time, he was just like, I would have taken it to him every single play and got him out of the game.
Yep.
And that's just not that's not the person that Wilt was.
No, it just wasn't. But 72, the Lakers finally break through again.
Yep.
Finally getting Jerry West a title, finally getting the Gail Goodrich. I mean, guys that really had not won before, finally getting it for them.
But we're really, because they had a great team, Jerry West, and
Yeah. I mean, Elgin Baylor was he's probably the best player ever to not win a title in the NBA. But, guys that had come so close before and never broken through, Wilt was kind of that final piece for the Lakers to finally do it. And he was the finals MVP that year.
Yeah.
You can't deny that guy that. Hey, everybody. Just want to take a quick break to let you know that our Sports Experience podcast is brought to you by Engle Studio here, and they're here in Tucson for all your recording needs.
Something that I found interesting early in his career was he was averaging 47 minutes, 48. So he would average full games.
And he never fouled out of a game.
Never. That was as the big man. So I can see that as like a point guard where you're not really, but
especially in that era too.
Yeah, where fouls were people were just dishing fouls out.
what's his famous sports writer, Dick Schaap, had this great quote where he said, when I think of Wilt, I think of, well, we'll get into the last number that he discussed. But he said, I think of 100 points, and I think of never fouling out of a game.
Yep.
And something else.
Well, I think it was 0 foul outs, 100 points, and then I think like 9 scoring titles.
Yeah, 9 scoring titles. Yeah. And I mean, he was 3-time MVP. He played 14 seasons in the league, made the All-Star team 13 times.
I was kind of surprised he wasn't MVP more because of his rebounding and just his averages. So he averaged 50 points a game one season.
Yeah.
He averaged like 25 rebounds almost his entire career.
Yeah, I mean, he led the league in 14 years, 11 times led the league in rebounds.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Just come on.
Such a great he made that center what it is.
Yeah, I mean, with him him and Russell kind of kicked off that era where the NBA, until really Jordan and Magic and Bird, was a center-dominated game.
Oh, 100%.
And that was the position. And like we talked about in the ABA episode, they couldn't get the quality big man.
No.
And because of that, it kind of morphed the game in a different direction eventually. But like with Wilt, that was the cornerstone of every franchise. If you didn't have a center in the NBA, you weren't anything.
Yeah, Wilt definitely put the prototype for all NBA teams for the 60s and 70s of like, hey, we're going to feed it into the big guy. He's going to skyhook, and then that's it. And then with the ABA, with the three-point line, it opened the game up so much more. But I feel like it also opened the paint for these big guys.
Yeah, and like, you know, when people talk about like transcendent players, like this guy could have played in any era.
Yes.
Even now, Wilt Chamberlain could play.
I thought it was interesting. After he retired for years and years, he was like, I can still play in the NBA. And the Nets came in and were like, offered him this like 3-game contract. He didn't end up doing it, but it's one of these things where the Nets were like, okay.
Yeah, well, he coached in the ABA right after retiring. He was San Diego Conquistadors.
Yeah. They said that was a bit of a publicity.
It was a publicity. Yeah, I mean, you got to draw people into the arena.
Yes.
I mean, we had talked about how bad these teams were hemorrhaging money. But
yes.
Yeah.
He probably wasn't a great coach, but man, was he probably one of the best centers.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, he made the top 50 team when they had the 50-year anniversary for the NBA. So, I mean, watch Wilt Chamberlain highlights and just watch him against these poor bastards not named Bill Russell.
Yes.
And even against Bill Russell, he would kick ass.
Yes,
so.
He would still get 25 points.
Yeah.
It was just like Bill would stop him from getting 40, or Bill could stop him in certain times.
And moments, yeah. Like when the chips were on the table, and that's what made the Celtics team so good, is like they always found a way to win.
Yeah.
But, Wilt was a dominant force.
Dominant force. Now we're going to get into, what is...
Yeah, so you want to do the politics or you want to do the other thing?
I want to do the politics, actually, because
Okay.
I found this to be interesting. We were talking about it a little before, how he was very ostracized by the black community at this time.
Yeah, and I was talking with Chris about this. The late 60s in America, black athletes were getting behind the civil rights movement. A lot of them were really buying in, and Jim Brown's a good example. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, I'm sure we're going to bring up after he had converted to Islam after being Lou Alcindor and Wilt Chamberlain's friend for a while. They were all kind of uniting against white society where they were being discriminated against.
Yes.
But Wilt's decision kind of parallels. If you ever watch the 30 for 30 on OJ, it's very similar to OJ Simpson, to where they said, no, you do your own thing. I'm going to do what I want to do.
Yeah.
I'm free thinking and respect what you're doing, but I'm going to do my own thing.
Well, it's one of these things where I never talk shit on an athlete for being political for something that they do.
Exactly.
I just don't understand why people in communities talk shit on athletes for not sharing their same views.
Yeah, similar to Michael Jordan, Republicans buy sneakers too.
Exactly.
If you want to support something else, or you just want to mind your own damn business and make it your own private thing, you should be able to do that as well. And
I feel
that's
like
what Wilt did.
Yeah, he was more into like, you can be yourself and I'll be myself.
Yeah.
Like,
how dare you condemn me for being my own person?
Yeah,
and
because later in life he He was a supporter of Richard Nixon, and he tried to get black people to vote Republican.
And he took a lot of heat for that.
A ton of heat.
Took a lot of heat. And, disagree with him politically or not, that's his own thing.
Yeah, that's his opinion.
That's his own views, and if you don't agree with him, then don't agree with him.
Yeah. That's the thing I don't like about athletes being like, oh, you're not going to protest? It's like, well, it's just the way I feel.
Yeah. Think what you want. You're entitled to your opinion. And Wilt was very open about that. And he was, this is me. This is what I think. Okay.
Yeah, very much open. I think to his detriment.
Very much to his detriment. And that's where that rift with Kareem came.
Yes.
And Kareem didn't like the fact that he was Republican. Kareem didn't like the fact that he wanted people to make it on their own individually as opposed to a block of people.
Yeah.
And one set of groupthink. He didn't like the fact that he was sleeping with white women. He didn't like a lot of things about Wilt and was very critical of him towards the end, much like Bill Russell, especially after when Wilt retired, he was the scoring leader. Guess who broke it and still holds it? Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Yeah. That era of centers didn't stop with Wilt. It's one of those things where he brought in this new era in NBA. But
the torch was passed, yeah.
But still was hated for he had a bunch of stuff through his career that he was kind of hated for. He did an interview where he talked about being in a Bush league.
Yeah, he was sick of getting hacked and triple teamed, and
which he wasn't incorrect with that. He would get hacked so much.
Well, like we talked about in the Magic Johnson episode, the NBA had no legitimacy really until Magic and Bird came.
Yes.
Wilt retired the early 70s. By the end of the 70s, the NBA was dog shit.
It was marred with violence and drugs.
They were showing NBA Finals games on tape delay.
Yeah.
Like
the Bulls were being outsold by an indoor soccer team.
He was not wrong.
Yeah.
It's just and this is what always made me feel bad throughout the research is he was an easy target and anything you could nitpick on this guy, it was similar to Peyton Manning, not necessarily for the off-field stuff or off the court stuff, but just like any little edge you could get on him and anything you could criticize, everyone went after Wilt.
Yeah.
And you know what? To his credit, and that's what I liked so much about researching him, he never backed down, never said he was sorry. He just took it in stride. He took it in stride and said, I'm going to be Wilt Chamberlain.
Yeah.
I am who I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He pretty much just said, I'm going to be myself and not change who I am with these pressure.
And you know what he never did? He never criticized these people back.
No.
He never sank to their level, never bought into all that stuff, never even really bought into the hype. He was just himself.
Yeah.
And something I really respect about the guy.
Yeah, me too. Researching it, I never knew that he was so vilified.
He was vilified, and like you said, he's a gentle giant.
Yeah.
He's not gonna be ugly in that way.
No.
And you know what? He was a tremendous athlete. Nobody gives him credit. Like in Kansas, he was a great shot putter and an amazing high jumper, winning conference championships for that.
I thought that was interesting. He never tried high jump, and he just could see it, and was just like, no, I could do that.
Yeah. And then after his career, he's in the Volleyball Hall of Fame in addition to the Basketball Hall of Fame. He got beach volleyball off the ground.
Yeah, he was if you see beach volleyball in the Olympics now, it's kind of because of Wilt, because he was out there doing it at 7'1".
And he dedicated so much of his time and money, and he didn't have to be a rah-rah guy about it, to different charities, particularly ones affecting people who were tall and things like that. Like he
also did a bunch of work for women's track. So women's track wasn't a thing back in the day, and he was like, well, why? And he was a big proponent of getting that legitimized.
Exactly. And yeah, he was a very complex and interesting person.
Yes.
Everyone just wanted to label him as, he's this tall basketball guy who couldn't beat Bill Russell. And it's like, no, there's more to this story.
Yeah. And we'll get into that.
Yeah.
One last thing.
Will.
So here's the statistic that he put out that he was a little bit bummed with. And it always makes me think of that Howard Stern movie, Private Parts. So what Wilt Chamberlain said is that he had intercourse I love you saying that. He had sex with over 20,000 women. And in private parts, Howard Stern's essentially saying this, they don't say Wilt Chamberlain, but they're like, he says you got to wear tight pants because women are into it. And Robin goes, if he had sex with 20,000 women, he wouldn't have time to put on pants.
Right.
It's just like, that number is just so ridiculous.
Well, apparently how it came about for this 1991 biography is one of his assistants had a day timer. So every time he brought a woman home, he would check off a box. So he'd check off how many came. And it was, in one stretch, in 10 days, he slept with 23 women. So what Wilt did was take up all of the days of his life and then subtract 15 years of it before probably losing his virginity.
Yeah.
And then cutting that 2.3 number in half to be conservative, and then multiplying it.
Yeah.
And
that's how he got 20,000.
That was the other important number Dick Schaap was referring to, is 20,000. And apparently at his Bel Air mansion, which he made specifically for a 7'1", 7'2" guy, next to his bed he had a stoplight. It was just red and green. Green was love, red was don't love.
So great.
But he took a lot of heat for this because it came out the same year that Magic Johnson admitted he had HIV.
Yes. It was a very big basketball biography year, if you will. It's very interesting. I'll say this, my personal experience, one of the only times I've ever really wanted to buy sports memorabilia. I don't know if
I love this.
If you feel like this with sports memorabilia, after you buy it, you're like, why do I have this?
Right.
That's just kind of, unless it's like seriously epic. And this was why I almost bought this, was this local store here in Tucson was selling Wilt Chamberlain signed shorts. Not his jersey, but his L.A. Lakers shorts signed. And all I wanted to do was buy it. And it was expensive, like for what it was. I think it was like $400 or $500.
Fucking foot-long dong in there.
That's what I mean.
Bedded down $20K. Come on now.
Come on. I don't necessarily care about the jersey that he did a hook shot in. I want the shorts that he did the deeds in.
The deeds in.
Yeah.
The post-game shorts, if you will.
If you will. It was just one of those times where I was like, I actually want this. I was like telling my wife, she was like, I don't get it. And I was just like, and I had to explain who Wilt was. And she was like, oh, I get it. Because she was like, why would you want shorts?
No. You need the shorts.
Yeah, the shorts are that's what you want. You don't want the jersey, you want the shorts.
Of course you do. I mean, why wouldn't you want the shorts? I mean, and it's Wilt Chamberlain. It's not like you're being like, oh, I want this bench player shorts. Nobody wants those.
No, and signed. So somebody had to take his shorts and be like, these are yours. Will you sign them? And he's like,
goddamn right, I'll sign them, baby.
Goddamn right. You know what? After we get you tonight, I'm going to sign them. I read about how he came up with that number. I thought that was one of the funnier things about Wilt Chamberlain.
Yeah, and he's an honest guy. I don't know if it's 20,000, but I mean, you're a 7'1", good-looking dude living in Bel Air. You know,
one of the most ridiculous quotes was, it's easier for me to have sex with 1,000 different women than have sex with one woman 1,000 times.
Yeah. And that was kind of interesting, the way that he said that, because he was a bachelor his whole life. He never got married. He never had kids. That wasn't what he wanted to do.
That wasn't Wilt Chamberlain.
And he freely admitted it. He was like, no, I don't want that. I focus on basketball, and now I'm focusing on my not basketball life.
Yeah.
I don't want to take away from a family or kids or anything like that. This is just who I am and what I want to do and who I want to do. Which
made him one of my favorite guys that we've researched.
Yeah. The honesty factor with him was good.
I loved it.
Like, yeah.
And all of his post-career stuff. He did a bunch of great charitable work, but he also did a bunch of, like, he was in movies, he was in commercials.
Conan the Destroyer.
Yes, yeah. Conan the Destroyer. It's just one of those things where he's in these iconic things from when I was growing up that I never watched him play basketball live, but I watched him throughout my childhood.
Oh, yeah, no. And I'm thinking, like, what basketball player's shorts would you want? And I'm thinking Wilt Chamberlain 1, Michael Jordan's North Carolina practice shorts 2.
Oh, that's a pretty good one.
Because it's MJ. And then as a Steve Fisher fan, since I love the Aztecs, I would want one of the Fab Fives when he was coaching Michigan.
Yep.
Because they were the first ones to make them not stocked in briefs.
Yes.
Like, they cared.
They actually looked like the basketball shorts we see today.
Men need room. That's all I'm saying. As a man with giant balls, we need room. Okay?
All right, here's a question for you. There's a big petition going around right now. I don't even know if I brought this up before, but they want to see Shaquille O'Neal's penis.
What?
Because they want to see how big it is.
Oh my God.
So
why?
he was married to a woman that was normal size, 6 foot, 6'1", whatever, like for him.
Yeah.
They got divorced. He has a girlfriend now that is 5'1". And people are like, whoa, wait a second.
The physics of that?
The physics of it. So now people are like, wait, how big is your penis? And now a petition became, because they're like, we want to know.
I feel like if he does it, he should do it during one of those shitty General car insurance commercials. Hey,
So
General,
good.
look at my dick.
No, just like, what time is it? He flips it over his wrist.
Oh my God.
There you go.
Like the Nick Swartzen bit.
The
You
Nick
wanna read my
Swartzen bit.
watch?
Yes, exactly.
Can you read my watch?
I love that.
Oh, man. No, but really? People?
Yeah. Huge petition out because, and it never was before, but with his new girlfriend, people are like, whoa, wait a second.
Oh my God. Our society just has its priorities in the worst possible places.
Oh, I agree.
I mean, I'm not saying if someone said, I have a picture of Shaq's dick, do you want to look at it? I'd look at it.
Everybody
Yeah.
would look at it.
Yeah, like, but I'm not going to be like,
Sign a petition.
I'm not going to go out in March and be like, I want the genie from Kazam's dick out now. Like, if someone texts me, like a frat bro texts me and is like, dude, I got a picture of Shaq's dick. Do you want to see it? I'll be like, yeah, why not? Like,
How about I got a picture of a dick, Shaq Fu, and then he sends it.
oh my God. It can't be any worse than one of his rap albums.
Oh yeah, that's true. But
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? It's just one of those things in society where you're just like, really, people? But again, if somebody sent it, I would be like, I want to see that dick.
Yeah, why not? I mean, what if he had a micro penis though?
That'd be ridiculous, especially for him,
That
for his
would-
size.
If he's anything under like an average 6.5 inches,
It's gonna look small as shit.
it would break the internet with people. Like the amount of memes that would come out.
Oh my god.
Oh my God. But I'm assuming that Wilt was packing some major heat.
That's
though.
what I wanted to say. I feel like it's proportionate to their bodies,
But like
most of the time.
I remember when we were doing the promos for like when I was sending you those pictures, and there's just pictures of him with harems of women.
Oh, so many.
And by comparison, they're so small, and you're like, he's going to break all of them.
Yes.
Like,
You feel bad.
you kind of do, but you're like, hey, if they're willing and consenting, good for them.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah, I can't deny the willing and consent between two adults,
Yeah, right.
or in Wilt's case, 4 adults. You know, that's just the way he rolled.
I'm sure he did. I'm sure it was like Roman bathhouse at that place in Bel Air for a while for Wilt.
Well, there was one story. This woman said, "Hey, is it cool if I come by?" He said,
Oh, yeah.
Hey, I've already had you, so if you have a friend, you can come by." So pretty much like, I'm gonna have sex with whoever you bring.
I want this to be a buddy system thing.
Exactly. He had his own Eskimo system. Let me just say that. It was just all, you know.
How if it's 20,000, Wilt Chamberlain could be Eskimo brothers with like every man of the boomer generation,
Everybody in Philly and LA area. Let's just say that.
which is
But then again, he was traveling. This is one of those other
Yeah.
things where these guys need to use condoms because they're like sailors, port to port, man.
well, of course they just should those 50 beggars. They move from port to port.
The only people that need to use condoms are professional athletes, sailors, and comics. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and like the whole thing with the professional athlete thing too is like this is pre-AIDS, and that's kind of why you got in trouble with the Magic Johnson thing. Is
And the sexual revolution. So it was all of that.
yeah, it was just free love and goddamn being born in 1987.
Yeah.
like it's like if you touch a woman, you'll get AIDS. It's like no, I won't. But
No.
I'm gonna take proper precautions.
Yes, exactly. I'll wear my mask.
yeah, right.
All right. Thank you all very much. That's the Sports Experience Podcast. I'm Chris Quinn at C. Quinn Comedy.
I'm Dom DiTolla at DiTolla Dominic.
And make sure to follow us at the Sports Experience Podcast on Instagram.
Yeah, and also give a big shout out to Engle Studios, or Engle Studio where we're recording, and a big thank you to Ty Engle.
Thank you.